Hey, OU, it's Taryn again. Welcome back to our third and final week of caring for your marriage during COVID. The past couple weeks, we've talked about what it looks like to create shared experiences through shared meaning, through our dreams and our values for our relationship, really functioning out of this perspective of our marriage being this third thing outside of ourselves that we are both caring for. Um, Last time we talked about what it looks like to be thoughtful, right? That working under this premise that most of the time when we hurt each other, we're not attempting to be malicious, we're not bad people. We probably were just a little thoughtless toward each other and what it looks like to truly be thoughtful and consider the other. This week, we're going to be focusing on what it looks like to turn toward each other emotionally. This language actually comes from Sue Johnson. She's the founder of Emotionally Focused Therapy, and she believes that relationships are at the core of our human experience. And that is true when we think about the need that we have for connected relationships where we feel like we belong, we're valued, and we can be understood. And that is what we hope for and desire, I think, in marriage. And so, because of the content of today, talking about emotional vulnerability and what it looks like to turn toward each other, I do just want to say I recognize that we are all coming from different places. We've all had good, I think, and bad experiences with trying to be emotionally vulnerable or share something with another person. And so, I understand that being emotionally vulnerable is incredibly difficult. I think that is why it's so important that we talk about in the context of marriage that non-hostile environment and being able to create an environment of safety between the two of us. Oftentimes, during maybe a more stressful period for a marriage, I'll talk with couples about what it looks like to just create this really kind and gentle bubble around their relationship where nobody gets to enter in. This is just the space for the two of us to exist together and talk and connect. I think oftentimes outside influences can get in the way, and we sometimes need to create a protective bubble or environment around us. And so sometimes that means kind of locking the kids out of the room for a little while, and saying you're up to your own devices while we connect, while we sit here and we talk and we have some time together. So we're creating this safe environment for our marriage. When I say safe, I know that, some people are thinking of physical safety. That's not what I'm talking about here. The assumption is that there is physical safety in our relationship here. What I'm talking about is emotional safety. And the reason why I use the word safety is we have to be able to know that I can share how I'm feeling with my spouse without judgment, criticism, or contempt. If I bring something to you and it's dismissed, and it was already hard for me maybe to bring that to you because of past experiences I've had maybe with others, maybe it's my mom and dad, growing up, they didn't express the way that they felt often or express it well. Maybe a parent was angry often, and so emotion feels like a negative thing. If I'm working up the courage to share something with my spouse, I need them to respond in a way that feels safe, that feels kind, that feels non-judgmental, non-critical. Most of us, because of those negative experiences, I think, have developed maybe certain protective coping mechanisms, like maybe I get defensive when I feel like, my spouse is saying something to me. He's sharing something emotionally that he feels, and I somehow feel attacked, and so I get defensive. We all have those protectors that come up when emotional content is being shared. So those are important to recognize in ourselves. Also, just being able to notice moments where my spouse is actually attempting to connect with me. And so Sue Johnson actually calls this an emotional bid for connection. I'm putting my bid out to connect with you emotionally. And sometimes we miss those bids. So I was talking last week about how I can be thoughtless sometimes when my husband he attempts to share something with me that is important to him, and for whatever reason, I can't get it through my mind that he's attempting to connect with me. I don't see it. I miss it. That's a missed bid for connection. And we do that often. I think we miss those bids, or we don't realize that our spouse is attempting to connect with us, or, they're talking about work or something that I'm like, oh, that's not important. They don't have to have 100% of my attention right now, but really the truth is now I'm attempting to share something with you that's actually pretty important to me, and I need to know that you see my attempt to connect with you and be vulnerable and share something with you. So be on the lookout for those bids for connection. And then also I think it just answers this question of, will my spouse be there for me when I need them? And really what we're talking about here is having mutual trust in the relationship. So, I know that if I need you, not just physically need you to show up, but emotionally need you to be there for me, that you're going to be there. It's not always about the grand gestures. It's not always about the ways in which we show up in really big and dramatic ways, like in the movies. It's about the small ways in which, I tune in to hear your bid for connection, to listen, to attempt to understand what it is that you're sharing with me. You're good. Okay. There's this relational dance that we do. Each one of us do this dance of flowing in and out of emotional connection with our spouse. It is not possible to feel connected to your spouse all the time. That's unrealistic. And we need our space. So, sometimes I think it's important that we recognize that to normalize it, are flowing out of connection and disconnection with others all the time, especially with our spouse. And so if you aren't feeling connected, I think that's the important thing to realize. To ask yourself the question, when's the last time I felt like I could share with my spouse something I was feeling about my day, something I've been feeling throughout the course of this week, something that happened today that really bothered me that I want to share with them. And those are the moments where I might not feel connected with my spouse because I have some new information and something I want to share with someone and want someone to understand. And, we haven't had that conversation yet. Or maybe we've attempted to have that conversation and it was a missed bid for connection. And now we feel kind of disconnected, like, oh gosh, they didn't get it. So that's important to realize, is that we're going to be flowing in and out of connection and disconnection all the time. The important thing is that we notice that we're disconnected and that we come back together. And that's actually one way. Another way in which we build and establish trust is, it's not really about being perfect and always getting and understanding this bid for connection that my spouse has, but it's actually more about my ability to be able to recognize the disconnection and prove to my spouse that I'm always going to come back no matter what, to work through whatever it is that we need to work through together. So with that being said, we have to be on the same page. If one of us feels disconnected, then we're disconnected. It is possible for one of us to think, like, we're good, we feel connected. It might be that I just feel connected because I shared something with you, but you haven't had the opportunity to do the same. So we want to make sure, in this dance analogy, while we're dancing together, in connection and disconnection, Sue Johnson talks about making sure that we're both doing the same dance. One of us cannot be doing the waltz while the other one is doing the tango. doesn't work, right? We both have to be doing the waltz together in order to move and flow in a rhythm in our relationship where when there's disconnection, when there's a step that's been taken, that we come back together. And that's that dance. So we need to talk too then about the importance of our emotions. Just on a basic level, like I was saying before, emotions can be really difficult or painful to talk about. And so I do believe that God created us this way to feel. We are emotional beings. Negative, positive emotions, they're all good in my eyes because an emotion tells me something about myself that I didn't know before. And so that's more information that I have then to share with my spouse so that they can be thoughtful and kind and loving me well. Dr. Mark Brackett, the founding director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, he talks about how emotions help us pay attention to ourselves. Because we feel emotions in our bodies, often physically, our bodies, the emotion in our bodies, living in our bodies, actually kind of shakes us and tells us, hey, something is up. Something is happening for you. Something about this situation caused some sort of a reaction, which communicates a message back to me about myself. It teaches us then about how we relate to the world. Okay, who am I in this world? Who am I in my marriage? It teaches us then too how to make important decisions. I think we hear often people talk about not making a decision out of a place of emotion, but more kind of using logic to make good decisions. That is true. We don't want to just make decisions based on how we're feeling, but we do want to help use our emotions to then come to a logical decision about what I should do based on what that emotion is teaching me. And then in relationships, emotions signal when to approach each other versus when to avoid. Okay, there are some moments where it's just not going to be a good thing for us to try to interact right now. Maybe we both had a stressful day. Maybe I'm tired. We need a little bit of space to be able to figure out what we're feeling before we can come back together. Relates to our physical and mental health, and then it also helps us perform and function creatively. It accesses kind of this part of our brain where we're able to express ourselves in a really meaningful way. So in order to, take all of that into consideration, we know emotions matter, and then we know that it matters to turn toward our spouse and share with them what we're feeling. And so that first means that we have to know our spouse's emotional landscape. Okay, I have to know kind of some of the common emotions they've expressed feeling to me or feeling in general. Then I can make sure when they say they feel that emotion that I know of other times in their life where they felt that way. And hopefully your spouse has given you that information so that you can be aware and have more background knowledge of where they're coming from or why that emotion is difficult for them. Dr. Mark Brackett also talks about, he uses this acronym, the word ruler. And he uses the word ruler as an attempt to know the kind of emotional landscape of yourself and of your spouse. And so R in that acronym stands for, first of all, recognizing your emotion. Okay, we can't share our emotion if we don't recognize it first ourselves. And sometimes, when I'm working with a couple and they don't know how to label that emotion, they don't know what it's called or can't quite describe the feeling, I'll just say, okay, well, let's attempt to describe the way that it feels in your body, right? If you can go to your spouse and say, well, I have this feeling in the pit of my stomach and it's really uncomfortable, that's still recognizing that emotion, okay? And then we attempt to understand maybe through processing, talking to someone about it, talking to your spouse about it, we attempt to label for more understanding. I think as parents can do for their kids, we can do this for our spouse as well, where maybe your spouse is expressing feeling something and they don't know quite how to label it, don't know what to call it, but something within me understands the feeling that they're describing. I might say, okay, well, when I felt that way before, the way you're describing, I felt angry. I felt frustrated. I felt hurt. I felt excited, right? And labeling that emotion for them and giving them the opportunity to say, yeah, that's right. That's what I feel. Or no, that's not it at all. Being able to express that emotion in a safe environment and then regulating it. We can't function in a highly emotional place. And I think that this is what we tend to focus on when we think about expressing ourselves emotionally is, well, you're too emotional. You need to go regulate. You need to go take some time, go take a time out. And although we as adults in marriage do need timeouts and do need to take breaks from hard conversations, I think, when we regulate, and we can come back and share in a really healthy way, it's a gift to our marriage to be able to do that. So when I miss an emotional bid, it's going to happen, just like we talked about. It's going to happen that you're thoughtless. The most important thing we can do is to apologize. And just like talking about marriage is not an easy thing, talking about apologizing is not an easy thing. We don't like to do it. I hate doing it. I hate apologizing. I tend to be rather proud myself. I don't like to admit to my husband when I'm wrong, even when I know I'm wrong, right? And so oftentimes I think I'll attempt to apologize in a way that's not actually me taking responsibility for the way in which I've somehow hurt him or wronged him. And so we just need to understand the profound importance of an apology, the significance that it has for my marriage and caring for my marriage. And so Dr. Harriet Lerner, she wrote a book called Why Won't You Apologize? I would highly recommend it if you're looking for some other resources. But she talks about 3 important gifts of a heartfelt apology. It's a gift to your spouse because they feel soothed or calmed, like they're hurting, and somehow apologizing and taking responsibility helps calm them. It releases them from whatever they're feeling toward you because you hurt them. Allows them to feel safe again in the relationship where they can trust that you're going to make things right with them. Shows them that their feelings affect you and influence you. The fact that they're upset matters. It builds trust to know that you will come back, like I was saying before, and it validates their reality and their experience. To be able to say, I get that is real 100%, and that matters. It's a gift to the self. Although it's hard to apologize, the greatest gift to self is to grow in maturity and self-worth. And the best way that I can do that is to see myself objectively, to be able to recognize, not let pride get in the way, but to be able to recognize that I'm human and I make mistakes too. And then it is a gift to me because when I take responsibility, it shows that I have high self-esteem and respect for myself. I'm going to be more respectful when I give a good apology. People, of course, feel cared for. People feel like they can relate to you if you're able to apologize. And then ultimately, it's a gift to the relationship. And so my marriage can't function if I don't trust that my spouse is going to come back to heal the disconnection. We will mess up. It's just how we deal with these mess ups that really matters. And so that is why apologies are so incredibly important. If you read Dr. Lerner's book, she talks really about kind of the 9 essential ingredients of a true apology. and we can make that available to you all as well, so you have that. But I would really recommend reading the book to know kind of what aspects are important in order to apologize and to apologize well. Um, Ultimately, we want to make sure we're turning toward our spouse, not away. When we're hurt, we turn away. It's just important that we turn back. And if there's nothing else you got out of this entire series, I hope that you learn the importance of apologizing and taking responsibility as a means of caring for your marriage. Um, Good luck to you all as you navigate the next coming weeks with this pandemic, as we're all trying to figure things out. And I hope you all stay well and safe and healthy.